Welcome to our first ever online lecture for English 3. Today we're going to be talking about creation myths. So, what are creation myths? Creation myths are also known as cosmogonic myths. Cosmo meaning related to the world or the universe, and then the suffix gonic means the work needed to produce a reaction. So altogether, the word cosmogonic means what was required to create the universe. A creation myth is the story of how something was created or how it came to be the way that it is. There are as many creation myths as there are cultures in the world. They're all over the place. And they're all different, but weirdly similar to each other. So, we're going to watch this video. It's called The Creation from the Void, Crash Course World Mythology. Now, there's a really cool series on YouTube that is Crash Course in whatever you could possibly imagine. And it gives you these videos that give you some background information and explain some things. So we're going to watch this, and I want you to pay attention because it's going to be important later.
Myths that describe creation as coming out of nothing are some of the hardest to get our heads around. In Latin, the phrase ex nihilo is used to describe this type of creation, and it can cause a bit of existential dread for people who are uncomfortable with the idea of absolute nothing. No time, no space, just an infinite void, like when the Wi-Fi suddenly goes down, but just much, much worse. Just ask Hephaestus, Greek god of technology. That guy knows about unstable router architecture and hammers. The ex nihilo creation story that's probably the best known in the West comes from the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So, in this story, the main character is God. And hey, let's take just a quick minute to remember that this is mythology, not religious studies, so we're going to be referring to the Judeo-Christian God as a character. So we'll take a second to just get comfortable with that. And now let's move on. So this character exists before anything we would call the world. Where does God exist? It's unclear. There's a void, there's water, which are handy if God needs storage space or is thirsty, but that's about it. Ex nihilo creation stories are common in the ancient Near East, the Mediterranean world where the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, originated. Egypt was part of an interconnected Mediterranean system, and one of its creation myths also posits a universe coming from nothing, as we can see in this fragment. I am the eternal spirit. I am the sun that rose from the primeval waters. My soul is God. I am the creator of the word. Evil is my abomination. I see it not. I am the creator of the order wherein I live. I am the word, which will never be annihilated. In this, my name of soul. Take away the first person pronoun and the bold claims, and you can see the similarities to the Genesis story. There is an eternal God who creates the world, and then there are waters out of which rise, well, in this case, it's the sun, which is nice. Just ask Ra, Egyptian sun god, because eventually humans would realize that some of us look better with a tan. Me especially. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time conceiving of nothingness. I'm a lot more accustomed to thingness. I mean, isn't nothingness a thing in and of itself? And hey, more importantly, can we really even call it nothingness with all this water around? Fortunately, for people like me, there's a word to describe the condition before creation: chaos, which mythologist David Leeming defines as the primal void or state of uniform non-differentiation that precedes the creation of the world in most creation myths. Chaos is something of a background in many of these myths, as it is in the Greek version of creation found in the Theogony by Hesiod, a poet and sheep farmer who probably lived in the 8th century BCE. According to this version, verily, at the first, chaos came to be, but next, wide-bosomed earth. Not much to go on there, but as we can see, chaos is what we have before a deity or deities roll up and provide order. And also the earth apparently has breasts. Mother Earth, I guess, makes sense. In many creation myths, an inaugural way to put things in order is to bring light out of darkness. In one creation myth from the Kono people of Guinea, the darkness before creation is inhabited by Death, his wife, and his daughter. In the beginning, there was darkness, and in it lived Death, called Sa, with his wife and daughter. The three of them were all that was. There was nowhere for them to live comfortably, so Sa started it. He used his magic power and he made an endless mud sea. In this mud place, Sa built his house. After that, the god Ala Tangana came to visit Sa. He found Sa's house dirty and dark. Ala Tangana thought Sa should do better than that, and he said so. Nothing can live in such a place, the god told Sa. This house needs fixing up. Everything is too dark. So Ala Tangana thought he'd better take things in hand. He made the mud solid. We now know it as earth. The earth feels sad, God said. I will make plants and animals to live on it. So he did. And that is how we got home renovation. Just kidding. I love this myth. I love that God thinks that the earth is sad, and so he gets the earth a puppy to cheer it up. A puppy and some plants. You know, spruce up the joint. But notice that there are a lot of similarities between this myth and the Egyptian myth, in that both describe a vast sea, one of mud, one of water, and that there is a God who exists previous to and outside of the void and the darkness. Though the Kono myth differs in that it implies that death is the one constant in the universe. Oh no, and now I'm worried about the puppy. But why all this talk about water? Well, we don't know exactly, but if you're living in an ancient society and you try to think through something as big as the creation of the universe, you'd probably turn your thoughts to the vastest things you were aware of: the sky and the sea. Even if you only experience the ocean from the relative safety of the shore, there is something unknowable and eternal about it that makes it possible to imagine the sea existing for all time, and even before time itself. And according to theories of evolution, the idea that all life came from the sea is fairly accurate. But let's not get into evolution here. We'll leave that to Hank and the scientists over at Crash Course Biology. Hey, fun fact though, the Western Hemisphere has water too. And we have some ex nihilo creation stories of our own. One of the most difficult and fascinating comes from the Mayans of Guatemala and is recorded in the Popol Vuh, or the Book of the Community. It's not as catchy in translation. In this complex story, creation occurs 4 times, but it begins, like the Gospel of John in the New Testament, with the Word. And just because I think it's going to be fun to watch Thought Bubble animate nothingness, let's see this myth there. Hey, Toad, pass popcorn. The Word began long ago in a place called Quiche, where the Quiche people lived. There was no one at first. There was not one animal yet, and no birds, fish, or tree. There was no rock or forest, no canyon, no meadow. There was sky, separated from all things. The face of the earth was invisible. There was nothing that could make a sound. There was the sea, so calm and all alone. There was dark and night and sea murmurings, ripplings. Yet within the dark and night and sea, there was the Maker, and there was the feathered serpent. And they brought their words together, joined them with their thoughts, planned creation. Their words and thoughts were so clear that whatever they said came to be. And the serpent and the Maker thought about the nature of the world, what would be light and dark, who would bring food, and what everything should look like. And then by speaking their thoughts, they brought the world into existence, starting with Earth and then moving on to its features like mountains and trees, followed by wild animals. But there was a problem. The wild animals were unable to speak the names of the Maker and the feathered serpent, as well as the other gods who helped bring about creation, and they were unable to praise the gods. Thus, the first creation was a failure. The Maker had to start over again, but not before explaining to all of the wild animals their lot was to be brought low, which, considering the fact that the Maker and the feathered serpent organized things this way, seems at least a little unfair. You, bird, deer, you will stay where you are, where you sleep and eat, in the forest and canyons, among the tree and bush. You will be eaten, you will kill and be killed. You will stay low and serve, since you cannot talk and praise your God. Thanks, Thought Bubble. This particular myth is fascinating for a number of reasons. First of all, it reminds me of the story in Genesis, of Adam giving names to all of the animals and establishing humanity's dominion over all non-speaking creatures, providing a single reason why humans should be considered special among all animals. We have the power of speech, and by extension, the power to invent and tell creation stories of our own. Just ask Anansi, African spider god of stories. Toad, don't eat him. This is not Australia. Even though this myth doesn't focus on chaos or the void or nothingness, it does have the idea that before creation, there was nothing except God or the Word. And like the creation myths we looked at earlier, it includes an endless sea, a physical manifestation of things unknown, but also of the source of life, since nothing we can see exists without water, especially people, but especially fish. We'll spend a little more time in the cosmic ocean in our next episode when we look at eggs, seeds, and earth divers. But this creation story is elaborate. Since Creation 1.0 doesn't go so well, the Maker and the Feathered Serpent get back to work, and they have to get all the way to Creation 4.0 before they resolve all of the major glitches. And even then, there are probably still some software updates, like ancient software, like service packs, but for existence.
We're going to talk about that story a little bit later as well. So, creation myths have 7 main details. 7. First, a belief in the great mystery, a creator, or a great spirit. Number 2, the interplay between sacred and natural worlds. Don't worry, I'm going to define these a little bit more in a second. Number 3, assistance from animals. 4, women in important roles. Number 5, an explanation of the universe that bends or breaks the laws of nature. 6, the presence of an underdog who beats the odds. And finally, 7, a respect for elders and their wisdom. So let's start with the first one, a belief in the great mystery, creator, or great spirit. So within each of the creation myths, there is someone, somebody, some dude, some lady, someone. This is the being that creates the world or puts things into motion. This being God, spirit, entity, whatever it ends up being called, this being, this person, can be called by a variety of different names. The creator in creation myths holds all of the knowledge of all things, but often the creator utilizes the creatures of earth to aid in that creation. So he can do it all himself, or she can do it all herself, but usually they get help from whoever's already there. So then we have the interplay between the sacred and the natural worlds. Interplay means that the way in which 2 or more things have an effect on each other. The sacred world would be where we find gods and goddesses. So this is the underworld, the netherworld, the heaven, all those different places that are beyond the realm of man. That's the sacred world. And then we, of course, have the natural world. This would be where there are humans, animals, everything else. This is our place, our world. Especially in Native American myths, there's a deep reverence, a worship, as though it's almost holy, for nature that creates stories where the divine and the worldly mix. We see this with lots of plants, lots of soil, lots of animal interaction, but it's all intertwined. So then we have assistance from animals. Animals tend to play an important role in Native American creation myths, especially turtle, loon, and raven. Notice I don't say the turtle or the loon, because in creation myths, turtle, loon, and raven are almost names. So instead of saying the turtle, as in that random turtle over there, they would say things like turtle, as in a proper noun. So turtle went to the store. Animals can help the creator themselves, or they can assist humans in the story. They can also act as plot points, so something to move the story forward. These animals can appear over and over in different legends and can have very distinct personalities. Some of them even continue and can be seen in our culture today, in the way we think of things today. For example, foxes were considered tricksters in a lot of Native American stories. Does that sound familiar to you at all? Of course it does. Swiper. Swiper no swiping, from Dora the Explorer. So next we have women in important roles. Women play important roles in Native American myths. This is because of a bunch of different reasons, and we have very specific women. So some examples of important women in some of these texts are Earth Woman, Spider Woman, not Spider-Man, Spider Woman, and fair weather woman. If you look at the picture in the back of this slide, this is Spider Woman. She actually uses a spider's nest or a spider's web in order to commune with the divine. Women were seen as the vessel for the creation of life on earth because they can make babies. Women make the babies, so they become important in these creation stories. This ability to create lets them be used for those important roles. Then we have the bending or breaking of the laws of nature. So laws of nature are what we consider to be facts about how the world works, like gravity. So if you drop your phone, you expect it to hit the ground, and then we all stare at it for a second, very upset and concerned, before you pick it up to check the screen. In creation myths, however, some of these rules can be bent or even broken, such as animals being able to talk to humans, a human flying to the stars, etc. Kind of like this donkey who's saying hey, or Shrek and Donkey. So then we have the presence of an underdog who beats the odds. An underdog is a person or a group in a competition who is popularly expected to lose. The party, team, or individual who's expected to win is called the favorite or the top dog. In American culture, underdogs are extremely important and highly respected. This reflects that ideal of the American dream that we've been talking about all semester, where someone who is poor and or weak can use hard work to achieve victory. We see this in stories left and right even now. One of the recent movies that came out was the Underdog movie. The Underdog cartoon was on when I was a kid. The Underdog cartoon is a great example of the underdog. He's seemingly a small dog, weak, that you could ignore and not have to worry about, but he's actually a superhero. So then we have the respect for elders and their wisdom. Many myths include a respect for the elders in the tribe. An elder is simply a man or a woman, usually older than the others in the family and the community, who, while not elected or appointed, is widely recognized and highly respected for their wisdom and spiritual leadership. This doesn't always have to be like a chief or someone who's in charge. This can be anyone who's older than everyone else. This concept is still not strange to us. We see it in modern day culture a lot. There are many examples, such as the following three: Yoda from Star Wars, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, and of course, Grandmother Willow from Pocahontas. All of these are leaders. They guide the youngsters in the story, and the youngsters have so much respect for them because of their age, because they know what they're talking about. That respect for elders follows us all the time. So for your next assignment, don't freak out. We still got a little bit before you have to do that. For your next assignment, you're going to be looking at two different creation myths. They're short. Don't spaz. The first one's called Earth on Turtle's Back. The second is When Grizzlies Walked Upright. They're from two different Native American tribes. What you're going to be doing with this assignment is you're going to read and annotate the stories. In your annotations, you're going to work to identify the 7 aspects of creation myths that we've explored today. Then you'll answer the questions that follow the stories. There's only about 4 questions for each story, and the stories themselves are short. So you should be able to do this pretty well. Remember, I like a well-done assignment rather than one that's done quickly. But before you actually get to your assignment, we're going to practice. We're going to practice how to do this with a different story together. So remember the video from earlier that we saw on like the second slide? He mentioned the story, the creation story of the Maya. So we're going to watch the creation story, the full creation story in the video that was referenced in that video earlier. As you listen, I want you to try and locate the 7 aspects of the creation myths. When we're done watching this, we'll talk about it.
This is an account of the beginning, when all was stillness, silence, and water. There was no light, no land, no plants, no people, and no animals. 6 deities, covered in green and blue feathers, lay in the primordial waters, the framer and the shaper, Tepeu and Quetzal serpent, along with Piacoc and Shmokane. These deities helped Heart of Sky, also known as Huracan, create the earth. Their spirit essence and their miraculous power gave the earth its creative energy. Now the land had a heart, and they called it Heart of Earth. To separate the sky from the earth, they planted a tall ceiba tree, making space for all life. The roots penetrated deep into the 9 levels of the Maya underworld. The trunk was on the surface of the land, and the branches reached up to the 13 levels of the Maya upper world. The plants were next created to live on the earth. And then the animals were created. But the animals did not speak and could not worship. So the deities decided to create human beings from mud. But these first humans had no souls and were not good keepers of the days. They destroyed them in a great flood. The deities tried a second time and created humans from wood. But the wooden people could not worship either, so they were destroyed. Those that survived are said to have become the monkeys and the trees. The sky and earth now existed, but there was no sun and no moon. A vain bird, called Seven Macaw, claimed to be the sun and the moon. But this was not true. 2 amazing twins, Unakpu and Xbalanque, defeated Seven Macaw by shooting him with darts. The hero twins were conceived when their mother, Ichkik, spoke to the decapitated head of their father, Unakpu, who spit on her hand from a cacao tree. Unakpu had been killed by the Death Lords of Xibalba, the underworld. The hero twins became great ball players, and to bring their father back to life, they challenged the Death Lords of the underworld to a game in Xibalba. The twins were permitted to play the ball game only after they had survived the dangerous trials set for them in the underworld. Using great skill and cunning, the twins won the ball game, and this allowed their slain father to come back to life as the maize god. The hero twins left Xibalba and climbed back to the surface of the earth. They continued up into the sky, becoming the sun and the moon. Now that the sun and the moon were in the sky and illuminated the earth, the deities created the third and final form of human beings using white and yellow corn. Corn is a precious substance that ultimately succeeds in producing true and enduring humans.
All right, so let's take a look. So, first of all, the creator. Was there a great spirit or great creator in this story? Yes, there were 7 in all. So the first was Huracan, or Heart of the Sky. He was the most powerful god, the main creator, the big bad, right? He's the one that did all the stuff. Then there were 6 others with green and blue feathers. We have the framer, the shaper, Tepeo, the Quetzal serpent, Shapiaku, Shemokane. Okay, so those are our 6. Together, these 7 created the world. What about the interplay between sacred and natural? There was a ton of this in the story. Ton of interplay between the two. First, there was the Kabai tree that both connected and separated the underworld, upper world, and earth. It's something that connected all 3 places, all 3 planes of existence. Second and third, the creation of the wooden people and the mud people, neither of which worked. So they were destroyed using a great flood. Does a great flood sound familiar? The great flood shows up in so many cultures all over the world. Finally, the last creation of the humans through yellow and white corn. This is why the Mayans believed corn to be so important, that once they used yellow and white corn, humans were able to be what the divine, what the deities wanted them to be. What about animals? There's not a lot of helpful animals in this story. Initially, the animals led to the creation of humans because they could not speak and therefore they could not worship. You'll notice it's a theme that shows up a lot, that when a creator makes people or makes things, if they are unable to worship that creator, they're not correct. They're not good enough. There was also another animal present. It was the vain seven macaw, who believed himself to be the sun and the moon. And if you remember, the word vain means he was arrogant. He thought himself above everyone else. So the macaw was killed by the twins, who eventually took his place as the sun and the moon. We'll come back to that part later. What about women? Not a lot of women in this story, right? However, the mother of the hero twins played an important role, as small as it was. If she had not entreated the decapitated head of her husband, the twins would never have been born. Then we have the bending and the breaking of laws of nature. So when the twins were conceived, their mother spoke to the decapitated head of her husband. He spit onto her hand, which caused her to become pregnant with her sons. Not quite how that works, but we'll go with it. Remember, we're not here to judge other people's cultures or stories. We're just going to go right along with it. The hero twins were able to bring their father back to life as the maize god, even though he had been dead for a long time. And finally, our last bend or break of the laws of nature. The hero twins themselves, after defeating the lords, became the sun and the moon, replacing the seven macaw that we talked about earlier. Presence of an underdog. Do we have an underdog in this story? Of course we do. The hero twins challenged the lords of Zabalba. Zabalba roughly translates as place of fear and is the underworld in Mayan mythology. This is basically what Western society would call hell. These guys over here, these are the gods of Zabalba. If you want to look more closely at that, you absolutely can, but they are some spooky dudes in that picture. The lords of Zabalba are literally the gods of death. They agreed to play against the twins, but they also decided to add challenges for the twins to get through before the game even began. Obviously, the twins were the underdog, right? They're the weaker of the two. Regular humans are definitely weaker than a group of gods who control the dead. And finally, the importance and respect for elders. We didn't see a lot of elder interaction in this story, but it was still present. The importance of elders can be seen in the hero twins' desire to bring their father back from the dead, and the fact that when he returned as a god. So now we've practiced, which means it's your turn. Your task is going to be to go to Google Classroom and complete the Creation Myths assignment. You can use this slideshow. I'll post it. You can email me questions. I should be available to talk to you. And you'll have a reference sheet that also contains all of this information. You are fully capable of doing this on your own, and I look forward to seeing what you've written. Good luck.